Maybe it starts softly. The kind of soft that feels like warmth in your chest when you see their name light up your phone. Maybe you don't notice it at first. The imbalance, the quiet ache. You tell yourself love is effort, that patience is proof, that the right person just needs time. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to feel smaller in your own story. Psychologists call this emotional reciprocity, the balance between giving and receiving emotional energy. In healthy relationships, it flows naturally, like breath. Inhale, exhale. But in one-sided relationships, the rhythm breaks. You start to hold your breath without realizing it. And that's where our story begins. Sign 1. You apologize for existing. It's subtle. The way you start to say sorry for everything. For asking a question. For needing reassurance. For showing emotion. For being too much or not enough. You begin to shrink yourself to fit into the small spaces they leave for you. Asha used to do this. She'd send long messages and then delete them before hitting send, afraid she was overwhelming him. Her heart, once so open, became careful, like a bird tucking its wings too tightly, afraid of flying wrong. But here's what psychology reminds us. Constant over-apologizing often masks a fear of rejection or abandonment, rooted in anxious attachment. It's your mind's way of trying to secure love by avoiding disapproval. Yet the paradox is this. The more you silence yourself to stay loved, the further you drift from authentic connection. So if you find yourself whispering, sorry, when what you mean is, please listen. Remember, your voice is not a burden. Sign 2. You give more than you receive. In every conversation you listen. You remember their favorite food, their deadlines, their childhood fears. You're the emotional anchor, the safe space. But when it's your turn, they're distracted, busy. The conversation shifts back to them. This imbalance is what psychologists call emotional labor. The invisible work of maintaining connection. When it's one-sided, that labor becomes heavy. You start feeling drained, not because you care too much, but because you care alone. Eli once described it perfectly. It's like watering a plant that never turns toward the sun. Here's the quiet truth. Real love is not measured by how much you can give without breaking. It's measured by how both people show up when things get heavy. Healthy relationships breathe through mutual effort. One exhales, the other inhales. Without that rhythm, love starts to suffocate. Sign 3. You feel unseen, even when you're together. You sit beside them, maybe watching a movie, maybe scrolling through your phone. The silence isn't peaceful. It's empty. You could vanish from that room, and nothing would really change. Lila knew this feeling too well. Her partner would smile at her stories, but his eyes would wander elsewhere. Over time, she stopped sharing. She mistook his disinterest for her unworthiness. But neuroscience tells another story. Our brains are wired for attunement, the subtle, emotional mirroring between two people. When someone truly listens, their brain waves synchronize with yours. You feel seen because your nervous system recognizes safety. When that attunement breaks, your brain feels it as rejection, even if no harsh words are spoken. That's why loneliness can bloom in the presence of someone you love. It's not the absence of company. It's the absence of connection. Sign 4. You're the only one trying to fix things. Arguments happen. Silence stretches. Promises are made, then forgotten. And still, you're the one reaching out, suggesting we should talk, apologizing, offering solutions. Noah used to replay every argument in his head, searching for what he could have said differently. He thought if he found the right words, she'd finally understand. But relationships aren't puzzles one person can solve alone. Psychologists refer to this as conflict responsibility bias, the tendency of empathetic individuals to overown problems in hopes of restoring harmony. It often stems from early conditioning. If I can make others happy, I'll be safe. But love that requires your constant repair isn't love. It's endurance. Real intimacy takes two willing hearts. If you're the only one trying to mend the cracks, you're not in a partnership. You're holding up a mirror to someone who refuses to look in it. Sign 5. You make excuses for their behavior. They're just stressed. They didn't mean it. They're not good at expressing emotions. You build stories to protect their image, even when their actions hurt you. You edit your truth to fit their comfort. Amara once stayed up nights, convincing herself that neglect was normal. Her friends saw the change. How her laughter dimmed, how she became quieter, but she couldn't bear to believe she was being taken for granted. This is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the tension between what you know and what you feel. Your mind resists pain by rewriting reality. You convince yourself the relationship is okay, because admitting it doesn't mean facing the loss you fear most. But denial doesn't heal, it delays. Healing begins when you allow yourself to see things clearly, even when clarity hurts. Sign 6. You feel anxious when they pull away, but not peaceful when they're close. You know the pattern. The moment they text less, you spiral. You can't focus. You replay the last conversation, wondering what you did wrong. But when they finally come back, relief doesn't last. It turns into vigilance. You're always waiting for the next withdrawal. Jonah lived like this for months. His days revolved around one person's availability. And though he loved deeply, he realized love shouldn't feel like walking on glass. Attachment science calls this the anxious avoidant trap. One person craves closeness, the other retreats from it, and the cycle feeds itself. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a nervous system caught in survival mode, confusing unpredictability with passion. The truth? Healthy love feels calm, not constant chaos. When connection is real, you don't have to chase safety. It's built together, breath by breath. Sign 7. You've started losing yourself. You used to love painting, reading, and dancing alone in your room. But now, your world revolves around their moods, their plans, their approval. You've become a shadow orbiting someone else's sun. Asha once said, "I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize the girl staring back. I wasn't sad. I was blank." Psychology calls this self-concept erosion. When chronic emotional neglect in relationships leads to identity loss, you begin to define your worth by how needed you are, instead of how alive you feel. But here's something beautiful. Even after years of dimming, the mind remembers how to glow. Your identity isn't gone. It's resting, waiting for space to breathe again. So what do you do when you finally see these signs? First, you pause. Not to judge, but to notice. Awareness is the beginning of every transformation. The brain rewires itself through recognition, through naming what once lived unspoken. Then, you gently start returning to yourself. You stop asking, "How can I make them love me more?" and start wondering, "What part of me needs my love most?" Healing doesn't mean closing your heart. It means learning to hold it differently. You can care deeply and still set boundaries. You can forgive without forgetting your worth. You can walk away from one-sided love and still wish them well. Because the point of love isn't to lose yourself. It's to find the parts of you that bloom in the presence of care. Let's return for a moment to the science beneath the ache. When you're in a one-sided relationship, your brain's reward system activates unpredictably, like a slot machine. Each rare moment of affection floods you with dopamine, making you crave more. This intermittent reinforcement is what psychologists say makes unhealthy attachments so hard to break. Your brain mistakes inconsistency for intimacy. But neuroscience also offers hope. The same brain that learned to cling can learn to release. Through self-compassion, therapy, and supportive connections, neural pathways of safety and self-trust rebuild. You begin to choose peace over panic, wholeness over waiting. Imagine this. You're walking down a quiet street at dusk. The air feels different, lighter somehow. You're not waiting for a message that may never come. You're just here, breathing. You stop by a window and see your reflection. Not the person who kept giving until she disappeared, but someone who's learning to return to herself. You smile softly. Not because everything's healed, but because you finally understand this. Being loved isn't about earning. It's about being met halfway. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop chasing those who only reach for you when it's convenient. So if you see yourself in these words, if you feel the ache of loving more than you're loved, let this story be your mirror, not your judgment. Because one-sided relationships don't mean you were foolish. They mean you were human enough to hope. But now, it's time to hope for yourself. To pour back into the places that have run dry. To rebuild your rhythm of give and receive. First with your own soul. And as you do, something beautiful happens. You stop begging for crumbs, because you realize you were always the feast. Maybe that's how real healing begins. Not in grand closure, but in quiet clarity. In learning that love shouldn't cost your peace. That being seen shouldn't make you invisible. That you deserve a love that feels like coming home, not losing your way. So tonight, as you rest, remember this. You are not too much. You were just in a space that gave too little. And now your heart, tired but still tender, deserves to be met with equal hands. Because love, at its truest, is not a transaction. It's a mirror. And when you finally meet the kind of love that reflects you back fully, you'll realize you never needed to shrink to be worthy. You only needed to rest where you could finally expand. And maybe, just maybe, that's the moment you begin again.